great you're here. It's the New Schools podcast. Today you'll hear from the co-founder and director of education for Galileo, an online educational platform with daily virtual check-ins for its learners. Galileo is proud of their curriculum in which nothing is mandatory and everything is inspirational. As a global school with families from 28 different countries, kids can learn and develop their best values from cultures all around the world. We're pleased to welcome to the show Galileo's co-founder, Kelly Davis. Originally from Philadelphia, Kelly studied at the University of West Florida, at Millersville University of Pennsylvania, and University of the Sunshine Coast in Australia. She left for Australia to study abroad in 2009 and has stayed overseas ever since. She went on to become an elementary school teacher in South Korea, and she now lives in Taiwan. The conversation ranges from understanding the learning needs of our kids today to supporting parents through this journey and onboarding empowered mentors. And now I hope you enjoy this conversation with your host, Shannon Falkenstein and Kelly Davis.
So I have an Acton Academy that I started in 2016. Are you familiar with the Acton model?
Yes.
Okay, so
amazing.
Awesome. So I'm super happy, love it. And, but I'm also just always super curious about what other people are doing. And now with COVID, like, I think you are in you're doing such a great thing. I think you're serving so many people. And I think you're like ushering in this change to like students just being a lot more free to go where they want, do what they want, and still be able to tap into something and learn. So yeah, just like tell me all about it. Like tell me your backstory, how you got involved in it, and what's amazing about Galileo.
Yeah, great. I would love to share a little bit of background story first. So I guess I had a childhood dream that I decided I wanted to be a teacher, and then that kind of changed along the journey. And in university, I decided to study communications. And it was this decision that led me to do a few internships. So I went to Australia and I was working at an internship at a hospital there. And I had a lot of friends who were studying to become teachers in Australia. They were from Canada and America. And they let me know that they were going on a trip to Fiji for this teaching experience. And I was like, well, that's really interesting. I want to go to Fiji, but if it's a school trip, maybe I'll learn something. So they asked their professor if this non-teacher can come, and they said yes. So I tagged along with all the teachers, and we went on this 2-week cultural immersion trip into the villages of Fiji without any clocks or time or technology. And it was this experience in these 3-walled schoolhouses where we brought toothbrushes and pencils and taught them about hygiene and the local water springs that have fresh water that we help them test, and hygiene and just very basic things. The grandparents were in the back of the room, the parents were there, everyone wanted to gather around and to hear what we had to share with them. So this teaching experience kind of kept that childhood dream alive again, I guess. And I had some friends that had also taught abroad in South Korea. So they were teaching English there, and they said, this might be a really cool way if you want to keep teaching and traveling. So that was a great recommendation. After Australia, I went to South Korea a few months later, and this started my, I guess, 10-year stint in teaching in Asia. So I've been here for almost 10 years, and starting in South Korea, I did a bit of time in Vietnam volunteering for students with special needs, and now in Taiwan for the past 6 years. So it's been a trip around Asia, I guess, to see what has been happening in education, mostly within private schools, and then here in Taiwan at an international school. And just seeing the way that the East meets West. I went to normal public school throughout my whole life and then university. And I think seeing the mix between Eastern world and how they see education and how kids are educated here, it was really eye-opening. And to see these very stark differences, especially about the way a child is growing up and what kind of play they have in their lives and how many hours of the day they're studying versus playing. And so after this experience at an international school, I decided that I wanted to kind of tap into what was happening online. And I met Vlad online through a job search, actually. He was applying for a different type of school that he was interested in starting. And the first project that we did together was the Homeschooling Global Summit. So in 2019, this was a project for a few short months, but it ended up having over 50 speakers and interviews from homeschooling, world schooling, and unschooling, whether or not they're in charge of their co-ops, their psychologists, teachers, educators, parents, whoever wanted to share and to help us learn more about what was happening. So this launched in July of 2019, and from this experience, we decided to invite all of the speakers' children to join us to start an online book club. So we started the online book club in August of 2019. They voted on Harry Potter. It was an amazing month of excitement and reading and sharing, and a lot of Potterhead fans came out of that. So after that, we decided to keep riding the wave, as we say. And in September, we launched the Daily School, which is the check-in program that we have now, and then started to expand our clubs. So that started in September of 2020. We had about 20 founding students until February of that was September 2019. We had about 20 founding students from around the world. They were from America, Europe, and in Asia. And then we expanded in February of 2020, right before COVID hit. So we started to allow their friends and their family to join, and this community to continue to grow. So that was in February. COVID started, I guess, in Asia here around February, and the rest of the world in March. And it was from that time when kids started to shift their learning online. Parents started staying at home, and the whole world shifted. Meanwhile, in Taiwan, things stayed the same. It's very normal here throughout all of COVID. But watching this happen through Zoom and through meeting all of these families who are either stuck or inconvenienced, of course, in some way by this. So that was in February, and we have now 145 students spanning over 28 countries, and a very large growing team of around 30 that are from around 20 different countries as well. So stretching across the world and bringing the best to these students that they may normally not have access to in their own public school, or they definitely don't have access to because they might still be in quarantine or have restrictions where they are. So we see a lot of families making this shift and more interested in what's happening now that they've seen what their kids are actually learning when they moved online from public school. The other half would be students that are already homeschooling or unschooling, and they're looking for more structure or more worldly community as well.
Wow, thank you so much for that excellent summary. So just, just thinking in the mind of parents, how much does it cost?
Yeah, good question. So each month the tuition is $300. This includes unlimited Galileo. So you have access to the daily check-ins and as many clubs, Nanodegrees, and boot camps as you want to join. And there's also a yearly tuition for $2,000.
And that covers everything, or that's additional?
No, that covers everything. So a monthly of $300, or if you want to pay at a yearly rate, it would be $2,000 for the whole year. And then there is a sibling discount as well.
Okay, wow. And so tell us about the daily check-in.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit like a day in the life of a Galileo student. So the check-ins usually happen between 8 to 10, set in the Pacific Coast time for the students in the Americas, and from 8 to 10 London time. And this is for all students in Europe and Asia. So those Asia students would check in then in the afternoon for them. So during their daily check-in, they would have a 30-minute meeting, kind of similar to a scrum or a stand-up meeting, where they come in and they are accountable and they're connecting. So the first part of the meeting will be sharing their schedules. On Mondays, they share the schedule on the screen. They share what their plan is for the whole week, and they answer, what did I do last week? What will I do this week? And what challenges or successes did I have? And they'll share and they'll talk and they'll connect, and maybe they're learning the same as their peers and they want to meet up and do that learning together throughout their week. So that's one aspect of the check-in, where they have their accountability and their schedule sharing. And then there's also a connection activity time. So we use what we've adopted from the Agile Learning community, and we use a game shifting board. So this game shifting board actually helps the students facilitate and run their own meetings. So the student facilitators are helping their peers be accountable with that schedule, and then they're choosing the connection activities. So these connection activities can range. They've made up their own games like hide and seek on Zoom. Sometimes they play Mafia, Pictionary. They'll have word games, story games, something educational, but also some games as well, some fun things. So there's a good mix there between what the students are choosing and depending on who's facilitating that day. So they have this accountability. A lot of parents are looking for structure as well. So we are there to help check in and make sure that the schedule is still being followed for day to day. And then the students are highlighting it as they proceed throughout the week. So they will complete the things, they will highlight them, they are attending clubs and sharing their projects that they're working on during that club time. And then on Fridays, there will be presentations. So each month, each student should present at least once, and they're diving deeper into something that they're interested in. So they can share a project that they're working on. They can share a topic that they've researched. In any kind of format, they can do at-home DIY videos, science experiments. They can make PowerPoint presentations. They can do videos from filmmaking club. Whatever avenue of exploration they want to take for that presentation, we're totally open to that. So they're presenting on Fridays, the other students are watching, giving feedback, and this is a great way for them to show their progress and to show what they've learned throughout their time at Galileo.
Wow, that just sounds incredible. Yeah, at Acton we do we're virtual right now too, because Latin America is very much still shut down, and we do a similar check-in. So I love hearing things that reinforce what different innovators are doing, because they're doing it based on the needs of the children. And so it ends up being very similar because we're basing it on what the kids really need. So that is so great. Wow. I'm just really impressed by your innovation and how quickly you guys were able to ramp up and create this to serve people. I imagine it's going to keep serving more and more people.
Yeah, and I think for speaking to the needs of the children, like I was saying before we hit record, we had a parents community meetup yesterday. So we do this once a month in 2 regions of the world to meet both time zones, or all the time zones actually. And it's a really interesting time. And yesterday we had a conversation about what happens between the older kids and the younger kids as they get older. So meeting the needs of them and kind of making that connection activity and that check-in time suitable for that age group. So in self-directed learning, it is the norm to mix a lot of ages, but it is also a time when the kids feel maybe they're the youngest in the group, and how do they fit in, and how do they feel settled into that group, and then they become the oldest in the group, and how does this class keep growing with them. So we're starting to see a lot of these changes here, and yeah, it's really interesting to just keep us on our toes as well, and to, yeah, like I said, read your book and read a lot of books from also innovators out there that are continuing to meet the needs of the students, like you said.
Yeah, that's awesome. So do parents ask, probably they ask us all the time, like, what about the transcript? What about the grades? Like, is the government approving that? You know, they want to know, like, are they able to get that certificate? How do you answer that at Galileo?
Yeah, they have to have the paper at the finish line. That's I went to university, I got the paper, so I totally get that, you know, that path, that journey. But things have changed. And I think what we know is that it was impossible to predict what the world is like today. And it is even more impossible to predict what it will be like tomorrow, let alone in 5 or 10 years, let alone 20 years, when some of these kids will be ready. So it's very unpredictable. And how we answer this question for the the proof, the paper, what do they need? There's a few ways around this. Depending on where you live in the world, the homeschooling regulations are very different. If you live in a place like Germany and Sweden, it's completely illegal, so it's almost impossible. There are some people doing this, or leaving the country to do it elsewhere. And then in some states, it's very easy to homeschool. So there's a whole range of laws out there. And we have a partnership with West River Academy. They're an umbrella school based out of California. They've been around for 30 years. So Peggy Webb and her 3 daughters now run this program that she created for her own children. And they've been unschooled their whole lives. And we see that the students can actually get documentation from this umbrella school. So just completed one for a student just to provide proof that they're enrolled in Galileo. And depending on where they are, we'll help them complete those records, documentation for that. So let's say at the end, the student is 18, they're ready to go to the next step, whatever that may be. We can help them create that transcript. We'll share all the things that they've done at Galileo, and we'll help kind of construct that and curate that into a nice transcript, whether or not they want to use it for a university application or for a job or any records that they might need it for. So the umbrella school is definitely the way to go for that documentation. As for accreditation, we also get this question a lot, so I'll just add this one in. And
Sure.
We do not want to be accredited because it will really structure us in a way that we don't want to be structured. We are not going to fit into the box of an accreditation requirement. So it will probably not happen for Galileo in the near future, or maybe ever. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. I answer those questions almost exactly the same when people ask about Acton too. So we do have accreditation in the United States, but it's in Texas. So it's a lot more flexible because Texas is one of those states that is very, very friendly to homeschooling and to self-directed learning. So
that's amazing.
wow. Okay, so I know that right now, something I'm really curious about is that I know right now, like my kids have been in their house for 7 months, and it's very hard because they're not socializing in person. But they have actually found all these people to socialize with online through gaming, and they're having, it's not the same, but they're coping and they're finding new friends, and that's amazing. I imagine it's a similar feel with Galileo, but in the future, when we hopefully can all go back to being in person, do you tell me about like, what is your prognosis of the model then? Is it like kids stay on Galileo, but then they're making relationships in their local communities that are just not school-based relationships? Or are they like, thanks, Galileo, that was fun, now I'm going back to my regular public school? Like, what do you guys, I'm sure you guys are having these conversations. Like, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. So the first thing is Galileo started in September 2019, way before COVID was even born in wherever it came from. Let's keep it at that. So before COVID, Galileo was here to be an online global school. That is one of our main pillars, is that global citizenship is very important for the future for our children. So I think we want to continue to have a global online school as originally intended. But the changes that we will see, and this was also in the original plan, to have retreats. So one of our families is helping us plan retreats. She also does this for her own life for fitness retreats around the world. So we have 3 places already picked out: Mexico, Bali, and Portugal. And we have big communities in Mexico and in Portugal currently. And I'll go to Bali. I mean, it sounds great. Everyone will travel there for a little retreat. Why not? So these 3 places and these retreats are already kind of being planned. So having a way that maybe in 2020, if all stars align, that we could continue with this plan to have retreats start where we can go and gather for meetups. And the plan is still very much in the works for this, kind of having like some workshops as well for students and parents, and maybe some of our facilitators who are able to join as well. They can do these clubs and Nanodegrees that we have in a live setting. This is just one idea that we have, as well as a student exchange program where we want similar to maybe an Airbnb or a couch surfing, where you have a trusted group of students and parents and in the Galileo community that we can exchange with. So not to have an exchange at the same time because the kids actually really want to meet. So maybe they all plan, they've been invited to one of the facilitators in Canada. So some of the kids from Europe are like, all right, we're already planning our trip to go to Canada. And she has teenagers there as well. So kind of having this exchange program is definitely on the radar. We're creating the stories in the background for this and the plan. And having some Galileo offline experiences within cities as well, like having the science teacher was recently explaining what they do in Austria, for example. So they have these labs there and he can do real explosions and real science experiments there. So having all the students that are in Europe going to the science lab for, let's say, a summer camp or something. And then in terms of like enrollment and students who will go back to school, that is something that we try to keep track of throughout the onboarding process. And this is not a good fit for Galileo. So we don't want to be a temporary solution, but shifting into a self-directed mindset and helping students see that they can be free and they can have that choice. It's very hard to then go back to public school. Maybe for the social aspect, that is something that they're missing. So we would want to make sure that they're ready to commit to Galileo. And we always ask that in the onboarding, like, what if school opened tomorrow? Would you go back to school? And what is that going to look like for you? And it's a whole range. And we see that maybe before the school year started, that there were a few students that tried it out for the summer for a very short time. And it was quite unsuccessful for this trial that they were experimenting with because it's really just not a full step in the door. You're kind of halfway in, you know you're going back to school, you know what's on the other side of this experiment, which is hopefully going back to school. So in some places where kids were able to go back to physical school, that happened as well. But moving forward, yeah, we hope that it's all students that are ready to be self-directed in that mindset way.
Nice. Just one more down to earth question. I want to hear about your application process and your onboarding process. And then I want to talk more about, I want you to really help our audience to understand the magic and the power in self-directed learning. But first tell me about the application process.
Sure, yeah. So the application process is actually just newly released this week. So our app is being released and the onboarding has just been completely changed. So we are so excited to share that first, the first process would be a learning community, a learning network, we can call it. And this is within the Galileo community. So in the learning network, you have access to our curated resources board and different programs that we plan to launch, maybe some live classes. And this is a free network where people can join and sign up. We verify phone numbers to make sure that everyone is safe within this learning network. And then once you're in there, then you can apply for the school. So the application process to apply for the school would be to meet with one of our onboarding coordinators, myself in Asia, Europe, and Kristen in the Americas. And we are here to help kind of screen and make sure that everyone is aligned and make sure it's both a good fit on both directions. So after that onboarding meeting, we would invite the students to observe a shadowing process where they are watching a video of the daily check-in. So this is a short video where they're going to see what it's like to experience a Galileo daily check-in. And then after that, they will commit they sign up, they're ready to join Galileo. And then in that final onboarding meeting, we'll build out that personalized learning plan. So each student has a completely different goal set and learning plan for that month. And they will talk about the clubs that they want to try out, what are their goals that they have, maybe talk about the things that they're already learning and what solutions we need to help provide, what support we can help. So we'll help them find the resources to complete those goals that they have and to use what they're already learning as well. So if they live in a place where they might have to complete a mandatory exam at 12 years old, like in Singapore, or they're preparing for some test, or they're very unschooled and they learn as they go, there's a whole range of students here. So that's why it's completely personalized for each student. So that's basically the onboarding process. And there's some technology steps as well throughout that they will work on. And then they're ready to join. So after that plan and that schedule is made, they're ready to join for their check-in. And we're enrolling students constantly. We don't enroll at certain cohorts or times. So the classes grow up to 7 students and 1 adult. And then we'll open new classes within a new age range. of that group. So it's a really cool way to see that the classes grow and they all kind of start together and they can build that culture of that class together.
Awesome. And English, is it all in English?
Correct, yes. Languages are very important as global mindset, but at this time we have a Japanese club and 2 levels of Spanish club.
Nice. And what's your age range of your current students?
8 to 18.
8 to 18.
And that's what our website says, but the actual age range is from 7 to 17. So we will accept some 7-year-olds if they have older siblings that are there to support or they're very tech savvy. So
nice.
There's a few 7-year-olds as well.
What if someone comes in and they only speak German or Japanese or something? Do they learn through immersion? Do they start with an English class? Or do they need to come in like pre-programmed with English?
Yeah, great question. So this is part of the learning network that we're starting as well. So having kind of these live classes, there will be English classes here as well. So we see students of all ages that definitely need this immersion support for ESL. But at this time, we only accept students who are near a native level of English to communicate in that daily check-in.
Yeah.
And the clubs as well. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so I want to radically shift and talk about self-directed learning. I think that to me is the greatest thing on earth. And of course, that's why I started my Acton and what I fully believe in. But I think it scares a lot of parents. A lot of parents are, everybody went to school and they believe like school is school and this is how it is. And if someone isn't telling my child what to do, then how will they know what to do? And they don't have that, that sense of follow the child's needs and interests, right? Which is a quote from Maria Montessori. So like, I know that you're also a big advocate and you're really passionate about this. So unleash it on us. What is so great about self-directed learning? Why shouldn't parents be afraid of it?
Yeah, great question. And it is so hard to deprogram. Like every day we're fighting against this current when we went through the system ourselves. So you're not alone. Let's unschool together for sure. But for the definition, I will just choose something from the dictionary here to help me explain this as well. So let's start with the word learning. And we can all have an agreement that learning is the activity or process of gaining knowledge or skill by studying, practicing, being taught, or experiencing something. So we believe that education derives from the self-chosen activities and life experiences of a person becoming educated, whether or not those activities were chosen deliberately or for the purpose of education. So in summary, through all of that definition, we know that learning never ends and all knowledge is created equal. So it is the goal of Galileo and hopefully of parents and students to instill lifelong learning. We're already living and being in a world successfully, and we've accumulated years of experience. So it doesn't need to have a box around that experience to say that this was the science class for today, right? We can go out, we can experience nature, we can observe animals, we can do a lot of things outside of a traditional setting that would definitely expand your mind way beyond what a textbook would have. So just sharing a few examples and some stories of students, we've seen that in some ways that students that come in that are already self-directed definitely have an advantage because they know what their passions are. But like I said, deschooling or trying to deprogram yourself from the system is very hard. So we encourage you to deschool and then as well to find that time for boredom. We also have a saying for our clubs, nothing is mandatory and everything is inspirational. So as a teacher, as an educator, the students are showing up because they want to be there. They've chosen to come to your club and to participate and to be engaged in that experience. No one is forcing them to come to that learning structure. So they're choosing into this more structured environment, let's say in a club or a nanodegree setting. But as an educator, the students all want to be there. So the energy there, the experience that they all have is already very motivating and inspiring for everyone that's going to be present because they're choosing to be there. So we see this kind of leaf turn for some students when they might not have ever even heard of some of the clubs that we offer. Let's say 3D modeling, for example, is definitely an eye-opening experience for students that they've never even thought of having this as a passion of theirs. So having 9-year-olds join very unsure about how to use a mouse or a computer, and a few months later they are the leader, they're the student leader of that 3D modeling club, and they're able to use that self-directed time, that time that creates that freedom for them to dive deeper into these projects. So knowing that they can choose what they're learning. We see a lot of students kind of in the onboarding meetings, and it's optional for the parents to be there when we're creating the schedule, but it's all the students saying, yes, this is my goal, this is what I want to do, and kind of like, wait, I can choose, are you sure? And, you know, kind of looking around their back, like, is this right? Is this okay? And it's like, yes, is that what you want to do? Then that's fine. And then they start to see week by week, month by month, that this creates the freedom for them. They have that time to dive deeper into the things that they want, and to maybe explore the tools that they learned about in the clubs, or any other skills and knowledge that they want to understand. Yeah. So I believe that for self-directed learning, that it's always a learning journey, especially in the parents community, that we're always sharing what it's like around the world, because everyone has a different experience. And we have a parents network as well, where they're sharing experiences and talking about, this works for me, here's a tip for you. And it's kind of bringing this community together, this tribe of self-directed parents and students, to really just continue to motivate and inspire each other to keep learning. So yeah, that would be my self-directed education spiel. And I think it's really cool to see this continue to blossom in every student that we have.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really like what you said, and I think it's very impactful and will help a lot of people to understand it. Thank you. So tell us more about nanodegrees. Like, I mean, it sounds like a little degree, I know, but like, give us a little bit more, flesh that out a little bit more for us, would you please?
Yeah, good question. So the nanodegrees are a 4-week, month-long project-based class. And in the nanodegrees, they are experiencing with an expert a variety of topics that are more focused on future skills. So we have had nanodegrees such as food innovation, where they design the breakfast of the future. In July, we had digital citizenship, where I taught the students about online safety and security. Then we had robotics, digital design thinking. This month is genetic engineering. And starting next month, we will have between 3 and 5 nanodegrees per month. So the students will have to make a choice, but they will contribute, or they will commit to this 4-week long class. They will meet once a week, and they will learn throughout the first 3 weeks, and then have some sort of project or presentation at the end. So yes, a nano degree, you will receive some sort of certificate or badge at the end, and we're working on our badge program as well. So kind of having this kind of badges that they can place in their portfolio, so that it shows the nano degrees that they committed to, and they continued and created that final project. The nano degrees that are coming in November, I can share, are Be an Artist, where we have one of our music club teachers and facilitators sharing about her journey to become a singer-songwriter. So whoever is interested in art can bring their passion there, and they can learn about becoming an artist in the future. The second one is crowdfunding, where we have a very successful 17-year-old who's already launched his first Kickstarter, and he's coming to share his second Kickstarter project progress with our students. So they will actually be with him building out his Kickstarter live for those first 3 weeks, and then either launching with him or launching their own for that final week of that nano degree. And the last nano degree is called Productivity or Getting Things Done for teens. And this is from a young adult entrepreneur who's actually an author of a book called From Foster Care to Millionaire. So he's a very successful millionaire, young entrepreneur, started his many own companies on his own, and he's going to be sharing some productivity tips with our teens. So this will be a 4-week long class specific for the teens. Like we said, about meeting the students' needs and continuing to help the teens, challenge and level up for their own life progress. So yeah, we want to have a lot of options for nanodegrees, and what we see overall is maybe this is something that they never even thought of, or, you know, we had a lot of parents say, like, are you sure my 8-year-old can learn genetic engineering in October? So this was a really great question that sparked the idea to have an interview. So now I interview all of the nanodegree teachers, and we shared these questions, like, who can join, and are you sure this is possible for all ages? And yeah, we make sure that it's accessible for everyone. And then in December, we have our very exciting National Geographic photographer joining us for a nanodegree about telling stories through a camera. So he is a parent of one of our students, and he will be sharing with us. Matthew Paley was voted National Geographic Photographer of the Year a few years ago, and he teaches these photo camps throughout the mountainous regions of Asia, like Pakistan, India, and Afghanistan. So he will be bringing this teaching experience workshop to Galileo to teach kids here around the world about how to use cameras and what it's like to be a photographer and how he got to where he is today as well. So just another inspiring, not mandatory place for students to be exposed to new skills that they might be interested in.
Wow, that's amazing. And how do you recruit these amazing teachers? I mean, I heard some are parents, so they're kind of already in the mix. But how are teachers finding you, and how are you finding them?
Yeah, great question. I would say it's a pretty big network within our team. So everyone's pretty closely connected. I would say for the Homeschooling Global Summit, we actually did our second year this year, where we had over 100 speakers and 10,000 attendees. So it's from networks like these that we actually haven't really reached out, except they're coming to us for now. We do have some specific ones that we want to share with the students, that then if we don't have the teacher, we will go look for them. But for now, they're all coming to us from the networks that we have, whether or not our team, our facilitators, or our teachers and our parents as well.
Wow. And how do you deal with math? Like, do you have a teacher? Are they using Khan Academy? Are they using an online program? How are you dealing with math?
Yeah, good question. We can even say that your child might hate math, so we'll add that into the mix. So my child hates math. They had a really bad experience. What can I do? So a few things here. The first thing is, yes, we believe math is very important. So we have a few levels of math club. In addition to having a math club, they will join Khan Academy for this math club participation. So they started with Khan, and I recently saw they're now using another platform. I think it's called Nexus, and they were going to work through the Khan Academy or through these different platforms that is recommended by our education team. And in a math club, for example, there would be approximately 15 students who join each week, and they would be sharing the first part. The teacher will share the challenge answers. So each week they have a challenge, and I have never seen students fly so fast to answer a math question than they do with this weekly challenge. So they're all trying to answer the challenge question. So in that math club, they will share the results and talk about this, how they came to their solution for that weekly challenge. And then they'll be broken up into little breakout rooms. So we use a lot of Zoom breakout rooms for math and for many other clubs, so that the students can meet with students close to their level. So whether or not I'm helping you or you're helping me with that math lesson for that day, we can go into that Zoom room and work together on math. And then the teacher will come around to each room and help continue to support the students based on their individual needs as well. And then in addition, we do have some tutoring on the side with the math teacher. So I added in the kid who doesn't really like math, because we do see this a lot. And oh, he doesn't like Khan Academy, and oh, it's so hard, and we had such a bad experience. What can we do? And let's meet with our math tutor, Sammy, and he's brings the math energy into every kid that we've had so far that has needed his support. So meeting with him one-on-one and just kind of hearing his passion for math can really inspire students to want to learn math. So yeah, we have tutors available. We have one-on-one support for any subjects that the students might need extra boost in as well.
All right. So what is the hardest thing about what you're doing? Like, what do you guys struggle with the most?
That's a great question. I guess the biggest overall answer I would say is to know, yeah, like I said, the world is so unpredictable, right? So we know that students need community and need support. So we just want to make sure that they will continue to get that. And is it enough for them? I struggle with that on my own. Like, is there enough socializing happening with these clubs and stuff? The students also have their about 10 to 15 student-led clubs. So they have a Galileo social club. This started as an international quarantine club, but quarantine stopped, so they changed the name. So they have a lot of social events, and they do have a lot of peer-to-peer learning that they are arranging on their own, where they're meeting in Zoom and learning things together. So I would say, just as my experience as an educator, I worry about that for the students. But as far as Galileo, I would say the worry would be to continue to grow very naturally. So we don't really do any marketing at this time, but just sharing word of mouth and just making sure that it's still a natural growth as we continue to expand, and just making sure that the values are still in place and that everyone is still feeling that close community, because we find a lot of people are coming here to find their community and to find a supportive group of like-minded people. And we want to make sure that as we grow, that this continues to be maintained.
Nice. And what's your greatest dream for Galileo?
Yeah, I would say we dream a lot about being the best school in the world and to provide education and have it accessible for everyone. So I think inspiring students, continuing to motivate students just to learn what they want to learn can be a really cool way to see that they want to be here. So I would say the dream would be just to keep expanding and to keep providing education for the rest of the world, and to make everyone aware that self-directed learning is a really amazing way that a child can discover something that they want to do, that they're interested in doing, that they're inspired to do. And as I grow up, I know that it's much more fulfilling when I'm choosing to read a certain book and when I'm choosing to study a certain course on my own. And if I could apply just a fraction of this to my 12-year-old self, I always go to the 12-year-old self, because I think that's a very hard age. And we feel very uncomfortable at that age. So just taking one fraction of the motivation and the inspiration, and just to continue to keep providing mentors and these experiences. And as kids grow up, how can they find out what it's like to be a scientist, to be a designer, to be a photographer, and to make sure that they're given these opportunities to have that exposure here.
I love that. I think we all, growing up in the conventional system, really missed out on that, because it was so programmed, so prescriptive, that, I didn't know anthropology existed, or design, or sociology. There's so many things I didn't know existed until I went to college. And then it was like, I don't have time to try all these things. I have to pick a major and a career now, So I think that was, there were a lot of casualties of that system that didn't ultimately have successful or fulfilling careers, because specifically school was too prescriptive. So I think you're offering an amazing opportunity for people. It's really great. So I could talk about this all day, but I know over there you've probably got things to go do since it's morning for you. But I want to ask you my final question that I ask everyone is, I love metaphor. And so I think metaphors are really helpful for parents and educators to understand what's going on. So if you could create a metaphor that compares, conventional schooling to what you're doing with Galileo, what might that be?
We use the word forced education. So we would say that Galileo is the complete opposite of forced education, and being a product of forced education and now seeing alternative education, there is enough evidence so far at Galileo that we need to continue to provide this for the rest of the world. So I would say that, Galileo is the chosen way, not the forced way for that. Yeah.
I love it. I just had a horrible image of geese being force-fed food. And then there's a buffet that you can choose what you're going to eat. So
yeah, and the kid's like, "Are you sure, Mom? Are you sure I can choose?"
Yeah. Can I take that strawberry? And you're like, "Go ahead." Oh, that's so great. Well, you're doing wonderful work. I'm so glad that I got to connect with you. And I love having, amazing people on this same journey, like you said, of like deschooling, homeschooling, unschooling, alternative schooling, acting schooling, like all of it. So I'm glad you're in the same corner and we're changing the world. So thank you.
Yeah,
Kelly,
likewise. Thank you so much, Shannon.
And hopefully our paths will meet again.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care. Bye, Kelly.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the New Schools podcast. Tell a friend. Previous episodes and show notes, including any books or websites our guests recommend, can be found at thenewschools.com. If you're a parent who is looking for a new school for your family, send us a message. We would love to help. We can answer questions, share the resources we have, and help you get in touch with people in your area who are on the same path, determined to provide their kids with the best education. It's wildly important work. Thank you for doing it, and we'll see you next time.